only place for everything Vikings. 6, 1, 2, Vikings.
Welcome back to 612 Vikings. I am Dustin alongside Drew, and as you guys can see on the YouTube audience, we have a man that needs no introduction, a second timer. You could probably call him a friend of the show now. He calls games for your favorite NFL team, the Minnesota Vikings, and that is Mr. Paul Allen. Paul, how are we doing tonight?
What's going on, boys? The 612 meets the 952 as mini camp ends, and now they chill for 5 weeks and change, and then we go full throttle.
I know, I can't wait. Drew, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. You know, we got some clips coming in, which is always exciting to see. You know, JJ's back and healthy and throwing as hard as ever, as much as people might say he doesn't, but he's throwing good as ever before. So that's always good to see going into the next season.
You know, it's interesting you say that because I have some what we joke about and call vocal maintenance days at KFan right now. They're really just off days. And outside of visiting my daughter in Colorado, I don't really go many other places. So this happens to be the staycation for 3 days. And at Vikings minicamp with the producer, Eric Nordquist, running the ship, 9 to noon KFan, I figured I would send him a surprise today. So I sat down with Justin Jefferson after practice, chatted with him for about 8 minutes, sent it in, and you'll hear it Friday on KFAN. But what's interesting here is the one question I asked him about McCarthy. You know, he also said, I don't know, like, where these reports are coming from that he doesn't have a strong arm, but he has a really strong arm. The question was, there are going to be ups and downs. Ain't no doubt he's 22 and he's new. But off what you see now or what you know over the last year, what do you know is going to be absolutely good about him early in the season? He said a strong arm. So, yeah, that I guess I haven't followed the news cycle that closely this week. I didn't know that was a thing. But no, JJ's arm's really strong.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things that popped up, like when you're on the pre-draft process, somebody said something like that. I think Colin Coward said something about it, too. He's been going on about it. Him and
okay.
We're kind of differing on the opinion of JJ, but I feel like at the same time they kind of have to differ a little bit just to have some good TV and kind of see, tuned in. So it could be something like that too. So
yeah, all right. So we just wrapped up a week-long mini camp for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm pretty sure everybody attended, from what I know of. But next, we're looking at Vikings training camp, end of July. So we got about a month and some change until that happens. So, Paul, I do want to ask you, with training camp coming around the corner, you've covered plenty of training camps throughout the years since you've called the Vikings back in like 2002. So I want to ask you, what is your favorite Vikings training camp memory or moment, or maybe even the funniest memory or moment? What do you recollect?
That's a lot, because I started doing the KFan show in '98. It was PA and Dubé calling the games in 2002. So we got 98, 9, 0, 1, and then 2, like you said. Well, it's kind of in line with the same response as when, like, somebody asks me, what's your most memorable or favorite call? There's a difference between my favorite and what resonates the most. With training camp, what resonates the most for sure was, I believe, 2001, when Dubers and I were doing a radio show, wrapping it up, and a bunch of ambulances and police cars flew by us down in Mankato, across the street from the fields and Gage Hall, or Blakesley Field. And it had Corey Stringer in it. And sadly, he eventually would die of heat exhaustion. Corey was a gentle giant in my early years, working radio by the Vikings, not calling their games. He was always super kind to me. So that's the most memorable. The favorite, I mean, like they used to ride bikes all over the place in Mankato, and to see Dante Culpepper on this little tiny bike with a banana seat, like a bell on it, and I mean, I'll never forget that. They had a player there named Gabe Northern. He was an outside linebacker, and he had just gotten here from Buffalo, and somebody ingratiated him with like an initiation bit, and they hit his bike. So all the bikes were across the street from the practice fields by where they go into the locker room. Somebody hit his bike. I mean, he's the last guy on earth I'd want to fight. I can tell you that now from how mad he got and him running around. I was worried he was going to go after somebody. So they brought his bike out. And finally, you know, and they're all from Mankato simply because just things were different. And there are so many more years than TCOPC, but that's coming up on a decade too. Laquan Treadwell in his rookie year. I think there was Jabari Price was the cornerback's name. I think he might have been a rookie also from North Carolina. And it was hot and they were mixing it up. And Laquan Treadwell picked him up as they were scrapping and body slammed him like Joe Rogan, Dana White, UFC. They all would have been like, hey, it was a hard body slam. So those jump out right there. Well, hold on. I mean, Favre coming in 09 right before the season, that's unbelievable too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you talk about training camps and guys kind of get back to the swing of things, I think people are always looking at who's going to be the next great Viking that's going to come out. And, you know, we've seen guys who've done that, like Justin Jefferson being the most recent one. Is there anyone that you've kind of seen that we can maybe look at as a potential breakout candidate for this year? Because we kind of lost our first last year somewhat because, you know, Dallas Turner kind of a little bit buried under the part with Van Ginkel and Grenard being there, and then obviously JJ's injury. So is there somebody that you might want to have us fans look at that could be a breakout candidate for next year?
Well, I can tell you when the fans come to Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center for training camp and, you know, they start to get relatively close to them and see them either from the stands or in autographs or whatever. TJ Hawkinson and Dallas Turner have reconfigured their bodies. So I'm not going to pretend to be, you know, some strength coach or anything. I'm just saying TJ's arms are bigger. Harrison Phillips' bodies, Harrison Phillips too, kind of more of a V, stronger up, just different. So but Dallas is like JJ McCarthy is 22. So they're still growing legitimately. McCarthy's taller. I mean, as strange as that sounds, he's taller. It's the cutest thing ever, I know, but he honestly, he's getting bigger. He's 22. Yeah. Jordan Mason is not as big as I thought he was watching him run in pads, but I like watching him run. And finally, I can't wait to watch Donovan Jackson in training camp because to see him between Kelly and Darisaw, and then they're just doing drills, man, just the run, just the legs and the strength and the girth. Holy cow. And that's just in minicamp. So I can't wait to watch him with pads on against Javon Hargrave and Jonathan Allen and whomever the Patriots are bringing in with that joint practice. But Isaiah Rodgers is really fast. In that interview you'll hear on the Friday Football Feast on KFAN, I asked Justin, 100 yards, you against Isaiah for $100, who wins and why? And he said Isaiah. And then I'm like, all right, well, you know, we can't really get a feel for Isaiah outside of the speed until training camp, and that's when it gets real competitive. That's when Justin was like, yeah, that's, you know, that's when we'll see who's twitchy and who can stop and go. And yeah, man, this is a really, really cool team. Ever since O'Connell took over, I've loved this job more than I've ever loved it, quite honestly. And from last year with the 14 wins and then the weird Arizona game, and every time O'Connell plays McVay, it's just weird, man. You know, because of the respect they have for each other, and McVay's his number one mentor. And you know, and then they killed him with the 9 sacks. So, but still, it doesn't mean like I didn't enjoy the season. I really, really love. Like I didn't know Grenard, Van Ginkel, guys like that. They're phenomenal people and obviously really good players. I haven't met Kelly and Fries yet. Haven't met Jordan Mason either. But it's just the spirit in the building is fantastic, and hopefully they're able to take it farther this year.
Yeah, that's for sure. Going back to the training camp battles too between like the offensive and defensive linemen, I think that's going to be one of the most underrated aspects to training camp, especially when the pads come on. Ryan Kelly versus Jonathan Allen, just that whole defensive line versus the offensive line. Now, Darrisaw, he's kind of easing back right now, but when he comes back healthy, practicing during the season too, I know fans don't get to view that part, but that's going to be really fun to watch.
If you're out there running around with a giant brace and you don't have to be in minicamp, I mean, how could he's going to start week 1? I mean, It's like, as crazy as that is, like, if I had to bet, I'd be like, he's going to start week 1.
It sure looks like it. That's for sure. I'd bet on that.
Yeah.
No, but you're right about the in the trenches deal. And, it really personifies the copycat league bit, and everybody does it. Everybody steals plays from people. Brian Flores talked about it in his press conference earlier in the week, spending the offseason looking at Vic Fangio's plays and Spags plays and stuff like that. So, when Jared Verse and Kobe Turner and Michael Hoyt and guys like that, just when you look back at it, you just kind of got brutalized a little bit. I'm just guessing, not speaking for them or the team. I'm just, thinking if they felt the interior of their offensive line and the interior of their defensive line from certain aspects needed to improve, well, they got the carbon copy in that playoff game. It's like, if you were close to thinking, hey, this is our offseason plan, bam, McVay just said, no, that is your offseason plan. But, and it's still, there are two common threads here that I'm just not going to forget from this offseason. And one of them involves the interior of the lines. But, when the oxymoron, what's it called? The legal tampering. When that thing popped on Monday right in front of free agency, you got all these giant deals going all over the place, and the Vikings slide in and get Isaiah Rodgers. I was like, whoa,
like, what the heck?
Like, everybody wants, thinking about all these, who's going to trade for Purdy and all this stuff, and Cousins. And so that stuck out, that they really, really, really wanted him and didn't want to mess around with it. And secondly, with Kelly and Fries and Hargrave and Allen and, some others, I mean, it's a common thread that they're getting guys who are coming off injuries. They obviously, they can't say they're 100 out of 100 cool with every single scenario, simply because I think that would be too flippant. But it really just shows the trust and belief they have in Tyler Williams and his training and sports medicine and strength and conditioning staffs, because, I mean, I said to Tyler last year, whenever we played, I think it was at Chicago or at Detroit, right when we got there, and we got off the buses heading into the hotel, and I was just next to him, and Tyler and I are pretty good friends. And I said, you're, for my taste, you're the underrated MVP for this team, man, and here's why. Because I don't need to know what all the little bumps and bruises are, but you're holding these things together up to the biggest games. And, man, I just got a lot of respect for that. So but with Kelly and Fries and Hargrave and Allen, I mean, I'm not one that sweats injuries, like I'm worried about it, but that situation is there.
Yeah. They just got to hope that they stay healthy. I think this can be a really good group. That's for sure. Going from this past free agency, Aaron Rodgers just signed with Pittsburgh, and we're still waiting on Kirk Cousins, wherever he may go. What is your confidence right now in J.J. McCarthy? Because the Vikings didn't I don't know if they really flirted with the potential of Aaron Rodgers. Who knows if that's true or not, but J.J. McCarthy, he's the number one guy in Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell, puts full belief in him. What is your confidence in J.J. McCarthy in 2025?
Amazingly high, because I'm so infatuated with the intangibles that I've seen from the young man that I can't translate to certain facets of the game. And here's what I mean. It's doing the K-Fan show as long as I have. I've had weekly guests or people from different sports on, like Chris Finch, head coach of the Wolves, he's on weekly, just stuff like that. And whether it's Mark Parrish or Wild coach Mike Yo, currently John Hines, just a lot of hockey players. And McCarthy came up playing hockey. The day after he was drafted, the first time I met him, I met a hockey guy. I met somebody who gives you a firm handshake. I met somebody who looks you in the eyes and listens to what you're saying. I met somebody who asks you questions, and it's not disingenuous like, oh, what? He's the announcer or he's on the radio. He can say good things about me. No, it was him saying, asking me questions. So therefore, that's stuck with me. He's very engaging. The thing about McCarthy, other than one thing that nobody talks about, and it can't be shortchanged, is at 22, and it's new, despite having Jefferson and all that. I don't know what. I mean, just think of Darnold last year, man. I mean, he'd been in the league forever, came out of the gates pretty good, went to Jacksonville, did everything he could to lose the game. Tennessee wasn't much better the next week, but then he pushed through it, okay? So even like veterans go through stuff like that. So, of course, JJ will. But don't shortchange this coaching staff knowing exactly what they need to hide, as long as they need to hide it until they can get it right. And focus on what they know he and they do really well together and build it slowly. Coaching staff, the bomb. Secondly, McCarthy's level of care will not let him fail. Now, I mean, we may not have perennial All-Pro. We may have Patrick Mahomes, but we ain't going to have Spurgeon win. I can tell you that right now. His level of care is so high that I would guess he has to be reined in. It's his when they start playing games and they take close losses or earn close wins, his post-game press conferences to the media are going to be epic. I'm just telling you that right now. He opens veins, he brings you in, and you can just tell this kid cares. Arm's good, worked under center at Michigan. You're going to like how he turns his back to the defense on play action. And if he needs to run, he runs like the wind. And he's smart about it. So I can't wait, man. I can't wait to call his games.
Yeah, and for sure, because for me, I went to Northern Illinois, so I actually had a class with a guy named Justin Lynch who went to Mount Carmel in Illinois. So he actually played JJ in 2019 for the state championship, and they actually beat Nazareth to take the championship from him. And I remember him telling me, he goes, "Yeah, this JJ kid's gonna be really, really good." And little did he know he was gonna be an NFL pick at the time, top 10 pick, but they were definitely worried about him. So there's definitely a guy that they had circled on there. So.
Well, that's really cool to hear, man. But remember, before JJ was drafted, and people, when they're trying to poke holes, they'd look at, there are games he threw 16 times or 21 times, whatever it was. And maybe some consistent games like that. Okay, what'd they do? I mean, did they win them all? Oh, okay. Cool. All right. And did he have something to do with it? Okay, cool. Let's start that as the baseline. And now let's bring it to the NFL. Doesn't need to be 16 attempts, but what's wrong with 19? What's wrong with 20 with Mason and Jones? What's wrong with 22 of them and Jefferson finishes with 134 and 2 because all of a sudden you got McCarthy on the bootleg, and because he does run like the wind and he's smart, you got to worry about it. There goes Jefferson. So let's let it unveil itself, not compare it to what it was at Michigan, and let's see what happens.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, I think that's kind of a big thing kind of going in with JJ and just those expectations. A lot of people are going to worry about the knee a little bit, but, I've had
that's fair
football, and they've had meniscus.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that, and sorry to clomp on you there, but that knee in the Raiders game, I mean, out of nowhere, I have no idea even when it happened. But then just the way the whole thing lingered, it's like, wow. So, again, you don't head into it with fear. You head in with faith. Being like, wow, are weird injuries going to happen to him? If it does, it does. And then you deal with that. But, I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, and I've had friends that have torn their meniscus, and they've come out fine in the end. It's a repairable thing. It's just, I think it was one of those things where it sucked in the moment, but we knew long-term that it was going to be the best case for him because – the repair and all that would definitely be the best thing for him. But yeah, so I think when we kind of go into this year, I think some people are really big believers on the Vikings. Some of them have their doubts, and I get it because, there is a question mark at the quarterback. There's not that proven commodity at that position. So I think for some fans, they might see themselves as being the smart, careful fan because they don't want to be wrong. But
Yeah.
what are some like expectations you would have? Like, because me personally, I kind of look at it like if he's just Brock Purdy that just manages the game and doesn't turn the ball over, I think this could be a double-digit win team, kind of similar to last year. So, like, what are some expectations we can look at going into next year?
Well, with JJ or the team?
With JJ and the team, I guess.
You know what? I'm not going to put any parameters or expectations or numerical guesses on him, honestly, because I have no idea. From a team standpoint, if we did this a year ago, and I'm not sports betting guy, but we looked at an over/under on the season total at 6.5, and I'm like, we are playing the AFC South, right? Well, then I would have sent you to your nearest place where it was legal. This year, it's higher, 8.5, 9.5, or something. And while I do believe they'll win 10 or more, absolutely believe it. The AFC North's a little different. Even the bottom feeders in the AFC North, like say Cleveland's in last place at one point. Okay, cool. You get Myles Garrett, or A-Rod messes up in Pittsburgh, and they're scratching and surviving. Cool. We get T.J. Watt. That just those AFC North teams are tough. My expectations for the team are incredibly high because of the talent on the team. Justin Jefferson told me in that interview that'll play Friday on KFAN. This has the potential, absolutely, to be the best team for which he's ever played. Ryan Kelly was quoted to the media as saying, "This is the best team I've ever been on." Now, those Indianapolis teams that he was on at times were good and at times weren't. So it's building up that way. My expectations are sky high. I'm not, Super Bowl or bust guy, or we're going to play the Falcons in the NFC title game and you're on your own after that. I just know it's a good team. If it stays healthy, they can beat you from a lot of different angles, including the running game, and I can't wait.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so great about this team, because you look at some other teams we might be facing where you have like a team like Cincinnati where they're a little one-dimensional. They have that passing game and you have to fear it, but the running attack isn't as strong as that. But I feel like with this team, it has the potential to be, kind of like what we saw from years and years ago with the Mahomes era, where there's just weapons galore surrounded by them and a very solid run game behind them, and there's just nothing but wins, and you stack wins. And so I think that's kind of the hope we have, in that we could finally bring that Lombardi back to Minnesota.
Right. I mean, but the way you laid that out, and then you smiled because you're excited. Okay, McCarthy, Mahomes, no chance, but never, at least this year. You need an MV3, okay? Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones. So when they traded Tyreek and they got that draft pick for Trent McDuffie, great. I think they got Karlaftis in that draft and Chenal, the Wisconsin guy, maybe that offensive lineman, Creed Humphrey, something like that. So, yeah, they're playing really fast in the front office there to complement Mahomes and the money or lack thereof they have. But you need an MV3. So, who would be the MV3 for this team at the end of the equation? That's hard to define. I had no idea Jonathan Grenard was as good against the run as he was until I saw him. I had no idea how the anticipatory skills consistently of Andrew Van Ginkel. There are going to be new things. This Maryland receiver, watching him return punts and Felton, and just watching him do some things, I got no idea how good he's going to be. But, man, he's pretty good. I can absolutely see in just a short amount of time some things that they absolutely like. So it's good. It's going to be really, really good, man. And but you got to finish with that MV3. Your quarterback probably needs to be one of them. Jefferson probably needs to be one of them. And then I would say either a corner on the roster now, a corner not on the roster now, or one of those interior defensive linemen need to be that other MV3.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of the AFC North that we are playing this year, you got the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns. Two of those teams are pretty good teams. We can all agree on. The Bengals and the Ravens. They're coming to U.S. Bank Stadium. Joe Burrow's first time at U.S. Bank. Lamar Jackson's first time at U.S. Bank. Now, US Bank Stadium, we all know this is one of the loudest NFL venues. How does the atmosphere at US Bank Stadium compared to other stadiums that you've been to calling games? You know, what has the best atmosphere for you? I guess, what's the loudest and what's the best atmosphere for you?
Well, I mean, when things are cranking, they all represent themselves beautifully. Like, Ford Field. I'll never forget. When Amon-Ra St. Brown caught his first NFL touchdown pass, back left of the end zone, walked off on Cam Dantzler. That at Ford Field, that might have been 75% full at that moment. That was the Lions' first victory period because of the pandemic in a year, and the first time their home fans had seen a win in almost 2 years. Now, even with 70 or 75% in there, that was loud. Now they've gotten good, and they're always loud. So Ford Field's become incredibly loud. M&T Bank Stadium, where the Ravens play, that's as loud an outdoor stadium as you'll hear. Obviously, Seattle, when they're good, they can get going. But one of the loudest scenarios that I've ever heard in my life with a stadium was when RG3 was a rookie at FedEx Field, and he turned the corner and Jamarcus Sanford took a bad angle, and he ran a long touchdown to win the game. Ooh, wow, that, but US Bank Stadium it represents beautifully. But a lot of them do. The weird one is Lambeau, because Lambeau, since they've renovated, I mean, it goes real high, and it's kind of become wider. So, outside of the cliched, the average age of the fan at Lambeau is about 58. It's kind of it's not a real on you, kind of loud.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, so I think with a lot of different stadiums out there, I think I think we always look at Seattle, like you mentioned. We also look at Kansas City, and those are always one of the big ones. And I don't think it's crazy to say the Vikings fan base in Nebraska we've really built that US Bank is definitely one of the top 5, if not top 10, best stadiums to be in, and one of the hardest stadiums to play in. So it is nice when you look at the schedule and really break it down, and you're like, well, this was a playoff team last year. How good are they going to be? And having them come to the US Bank is definitely a big pro compared to like how we had it a couple of years ago. So, but we I think for me, like one of the things that I want to ask too is when we look into the future as well. I think we look at Kevin O'Connell, how great he's done, and Kwesi and how good he's done. I think it really gets kind of not ignored, but just kind of the underrated part of the staff is Brian Flores a little bit, because he doesn't have the head coach. He's not the head coach right now at this current moment in time, but Brian Flores' impact from day one, taking a bottom 3, scoring defense, and in 2 years it becomes a top 5-ish scoring defense. So when we look at Brian Flores' future, when he's getting these requests for interviews, is this something where you can kind of see maybe it being like a last year for Brian Flores, kind of what you saw like a couple, last year of Ben Johnson, or do you think this is something where he really likes to hear it could be the long haul?
Well, I mean, he, with all due respect, because I consider Brian a friend, and Brian and I have gotten pretty close the last year through fellowship and Christianity and chapel and stuff like that. Brian is part of a lawsuit or multiple lawsuits against the NFL.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one
I don't
thing.
really think there's anything else to say.
Yeah, and I think that's something I was gonna mention too, because I think some people look at it. I don't say being blackballed, but it might be a little bit of an advantage for the Vikings, and they kind of want him to stay in a little bit. So
I love him here. Yeah, I love him here, and now that's just I took the low hanging fruit there, and I'm not saying that it's a completely. I can't prove it's a fixed race, and I'm not accusing anybody of fixing a race. I just think Brian has done enough with defenses and this defense to put on film what I can bring to your team. Now, the rest of it, I wouldn't know like what his days were like in New England and Miami and stuff like that. But I love the guy. Brian can be quiet. Brian's cool, man. But he's very, very smart. He has a high-end staff, including Mike Pettin, who I think is he's the assistant head coach, associate head coach, outside linebackers, former head coach. Marcus Dixon's done an awesome job taking over the defensive line. Durante Jones should be a defensive coordinator one day. He's the DB's coach. So they got a lot of coaches. I think they pay their coaches really, really well too. And they got a really, really smart staff. But I adore Brian. And honestly, I hope he never leaves, but he probably will one day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a day we don't want to see come, but, definitely would love to have him here for the long haul and help construct this thing kind of similar to what Kansas City's done with Steve Spagnuolo and build something for the long haul and bring that first championship to Minnesota. So,
well, the biggest key now, all right, from the end of minicamp up to training camp, where it gets a little purple and gold and NFL abyss-like. So like my guy Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, Jeremy Fowler, ESPN.com, Tom, NFL Network, all the ones that I super respect. They're going to be chilling, probably taking time with their family. But there's going to be the news cycle that continues. So where will that wheel fall here? So if you look at the roster, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Demetrius Washington, Ryan Grigson, O'Connell, and everybody have constructed. If somebody formulated the opinion, love it, love it, love it. I believe in the quarterback, so we're willing to wait and see what happens there. I ain't going to sweat injuries of new guys here, but I think you're a cornerback short. If somebody said that with Murphy, who can play, Rodgers, who they love, he can play, but he hasn't done a ton in his career as a corner to be like, yep, that's 100% it. But they love him, so by faith, I'm going to roll with what they love because they know more about it than us. Then you got Mekhi Blackman and you got McGlothern, Utah State, undrafted guy that my friend Alec Lewis from The Athletic absolutely loves. I mean, that guy's a physical specimen, too. I think his last name's Vaughn. It looks really good. You get the point here. If you're looking at the whole thing and you're saying, yeah, I think you're a veteran cornerback short, that could dominate the news cycle from the time we record this up to training camp. The obvious two names I think definitely would be in play, Jalen Ramsey and Jair Alexander. I wouldn't be surprised if Jair wanted to play here because it's indoors. The coaching staff is cool. People like playing for Flores because he's aggressive. And Jair is a man corner. He's really good playing man when he's healthy. So let's see where that whole thing goes.
Yeah, I think we'll have to give Mike Pettin a call and give him, hey, you want to come over here? And
oh yeah, that's right.
Aaron Jones too.
Well, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about Pettin. Damn, nice call, bro. Because the only thing I can share about Jair and O'Connell is when I get the opportunity to tape a pregame interview with Kevin, either morning of the game at US Bank Stadium or the day before at the team hotel. Little 5-6 minute deal. He's had glowing praise over the years of Jair Alexander, and I just know that it's authentic. That he respects his game a lot. So a lot of injuries the last couple of years. So we'll see. Jalen still can play from what I hear, but then you got that money situation with him. So if you believe they are a corner short, I'm not completely willing to say that, but if you believed that, I wouldn't argue hard.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey,
sure.
well, speaking of former head coaches, Brian Flores was a former head coach. But speaking of former head coaches, you've called games under coaches like Mike Tice, Mike Zimmer, and now Kevin O'Connell. What is a coaching decision or sideline moment that stuck with you, whether that was good or bad? You can spin this whatever way you want. I'm just curious on what your answer would be. Any coaching moment.
Okay, I'll give you one from the Vikings and one from an opponent. First, with the now I got two. With the Vikings, when Childress got fired in 2010, I think they got shut out at home, or might have scored 3 points against the Packers. He got fired. When Leslie Frazier won his first game, it was at FedEx Field, and Greenway, Ben Lieber, and a bunch of players carried him off the field. I just love Leslie. He's one of my favorites all time. That was a moment I'll never forget. Secondly, College Stadium, TCF Bank Stadium, that game where they beat the Rams went to overtime. Zimmer won the toss and gave them the ball into 60-mile-per-hour wind. Great call by Zim. In that game, safety LaMarcus Joyner, he hit, I think, Teddy Bridgewater, or he hit somebody. Whoa, Zimmer, I mean, holy cow, head just exploded. He was so mad at their defensive coordinator, Greg Williams. That one jumps out. Other side, I mean, when Sean Payton, who I dubbed the anti-Vike, was so certain he had the Vikings beaten in that playoff game, and he looked at the U.S. Bank Stadium crowd and mocked the skull chant, and then he had a miracle put on him. Never forget that one, anti-Vike. Never forget
Love
that one.
Yeah, you don't wanna test anything. It's never over till it's over. That's the saying that, when I'm coaching, I'll put that up and say, not until there's zeros on this clock, it's never over. So that's the ultimate go-to you can always put out there for them.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right.
You got one last question, Drew?
No, I think I got all mine. I didn't know if you had another one for.
Okay. No, I think I'm all out. So
This
that'll
is great,
do it for
man.
the
Thanks a lot for having me,
questions.
guys. That was cool.
Yeah, for sure. You ready to play our favorite game?
Sure. I don't know what your
Okay.
favorite game is. And
I don't think it's our favorite
it's
game.
not
We're just
gonna
starting this now.
compromise
But
my integrity or violate my body.
no.
Other than that, I'm ready to go.
So we're gonna play guess the random Minnesota Viking player. So
This is
I'm gonna
sweet.
show you 5 different Vikings within the past 8 to 10 years, if that. And
That's
I'm gonna
cool,
see if
man.
you can guess who they are.
Okay.
Okay, you ready? Number 1 is, if it will work.
Do I have a timer?
No, you can take as long as you need.
Okay.
Number 1,
Sean Hill.
Sean Hill. It'll probably go easiest to hardest.
Okay.
Second,
Oh, geez.
back in 2016. That's
Hold
your only
on.
hint.
Hold on. Josh Klein.
Not Josh Klein.
Ezra Cleveland.
Not Ezra.
Who is it?
It
Yeah.
is Jake Long.
Yep.
Jake Long, back in
Nice.
2016.
Nice.
Number 3.
Wow. George Iloka.
Ooh, good pull. Good pull.
Is that who it
Number
is?
4.
Yep.
George Iloka.
Deshaun Bauer.
Ooh, good. Yep. Deshaun Bauer.
Let's go.
And then we got a punter for you.
Darren Bennett.
Nope.
Nope.
2017.
Jeff Locke.
Not Jeff Locke.
Jordan Berry.
Not Jordan Berry. Same number, though.
Yep. Between them though.
Oh.
Mr. Ryan Quigley.
Wow. Ryan Quigley, 2017, week 2. They decided they were going to fake a punt at Pittsburgh, and he threw left to tight end Blake Bell. Let's just say the play didn't go that well.
I do remember that. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a sweet game, man.
Hey, if we ever get you on again, maybe
Anytime.
this summer before week 1, we'll
Yeah,
definitely.
you guys
have
are
to do
cool,
that
man. I
again.
appreciate it.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Paul, again for joining our second episode with you on here. Definitely appreciate that. We'll
problem.
definitely have you on again at some point. And make sure you guys leave a like on this video if you are on our YouTube audience. If you are listening, subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, 612 Vikings. Follow us on X or Twitter, 612 Vikings. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Skull Vikes.